So I finally, after so long, have watched the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai, but who's the real villain? I gotta know, there's so many layers we can talk about with that. I'm sorry, alright. I don't like to make fun of other YouTubers. We're all in this together and stuff. I've seen that thumbnail so many times of just Johnny and Daniel and just, who's the real villain? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but every thumbnail says that. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I might just have a thumbnail of like me doing that, just like, oh my god. So no offense. It's said a lot. It's asked a lot, I should say. So, all right. So, I did not see this when it was on YouTube Red, and finally when it came to Netflix, it's like, okay, I have no excuse. So, started watching it. I'll just say straight up, I'm not going to do spoilers here. I'll talk about themes and ideas, maybe the basic plot, but no spoilers. So just my initial reaction on the whole thing. I literally just got done watching the last episode of season 2. See the pilot, and it's like, this is good. It's a little shaky, like they don't quite have their footing yet, but this is really good. I can really see something here. Like episode 2 or 3 on, I was just hooked, and I love the layout of this show, and I love the acting, and I love the new characters they introduce. I love the old characters, even, they bring back. The callbacks are not as bad as you would think. They do get a little tedious sometimes, but for the most part, they work with it kind of as its own thing. But it's something where I saw this first season and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I love the balance between, who's the real villain? That whole thing of like, sort of the yin and yang between these two, but you have one side that's very successful and one side that's not, and one that's seen as the ultimate good and one that's seen as like, the clear bad guy, and they both kind of, go back and forth. Like the good guy will do some bad things and the bad guy will do some good things, and they sort of rope in these students that are also, they're trying to find identity. They're high school students, that's all about trying to figure out who you are and what you stand for and what you want to do and everything. And there's these two sides, really pulling at them, and both are very, very similar. So this is done as wonderfully as I think you can do this idea. This is much better than this idea has any right to be, being a sequel series to the Karate Kid focusing on the bad guy dojo. And I love the Karate Kid. I know it's formulaic, but it's great. So the first season is absolutely fantastic. Second season is also absolutely wonderful, keeps your attention and just keeps throwing in, keeping the balance going and showing how similar these two actually are. And I like sometimes when they get along, but something's gonna screw it up. So that's all great until the last episode. And again, without giving anything away, I had a friend I was talking about because I was really obsessed watching Cobra Kai. I just couldn't believe how much I was getting wrapped up in it. And I brought it to a friend. He says, nah, man, it's all CW shit. It's all Dawson's Creek nonsense. I'm just like, what? Like, I like the show because it wasn't doing that. Like they would sort of hint at it, like, oh, we're going to act like we're going to go down this cliched road. But then they would stop, or they would throw like a different twist on it. So it's like, okay, like we're not going to do this bullshit, pretty much. Except for the last episode, where they just, like, swim in it. I mean, they just swim in the dumbest, most cliched crap. I really thought it was like watching a different show. I could not believe, like, what I was seeing. They kind of Game of Thrones season 2, Like, they had something really great, and then just in the... Well, Game of Thrones was more the last season, but this was, like, the last episode. They just, like... totally trashed it and went for like this, super teen soap opera, stuff that the episode prior kind of had that too. Like the teens were getting a little annoying and again, a little like, all right, so it's always going to be the formulas. It's always what's going to happen. But I was still with them enough because the stuff with the adults was so good. with Daniel and Johnny and everyone else. But as soon as you get to that last episode, it just does a real nosedive into all the stuff I felt like they were mocking in the first season, and even a good chunk of the second season. Like, they were almost letting us know, you're in good hands, we're not going to do that shit. And they do, all in this one episode. The one upside to it is that there is a big fight that, again, is just totally ridiculous, but it goes so crazy, it's kind of fun. And I actually thought, again, I was like, oh, well, this is meant to be silly. This is meant to be kind of corny, which the show is. I mean, it's very well done, but it definitely has those corny elements because it's from, I mean, a movie I love, Karate Kid, but it is a corny movie as well. But it's also a very dramatic movie. It's very charming. It's very likable. It's very inspiring in many respects, you know. So I mean, still love that movie. I'm not, you know, trashing it at all, you know, but it's definitely the very traditional 80s corny sports movie. But it does it so well, it's not a problem. It works with the formula very well. And this was doing the same thing. And honestly, I really don't want to come across like this is a negative review at all. It's really not. There is way too much good stuff in this for me to say, yeah, don't check it out. It's like, no, this is really, really good. It's just the last, I can even say the final episode of season 2 and a half, because kind of the episode before, half of it's really good with the adults and then half of it focusing on the kids is pretty lame, but the stuff with the adults, again, is really nice. So I definitely really am really happy I finally checked this out. And if you haven't yet, if you're a fan of Karate Kid, and you know, like my friend was saying, it's too Dawson's Creek and everything, it's really not until like the last episode. There are kind of hints here and there, but it doesn't go full out until the last one in season 2. So I think, so a lot of the kid actors, especially all the actors turn out pretty good. The older actors, you know, with again Johnny and Daniel, they definitely have a like an 80s film feel to them, you know, like he's the 80s badass, you know, but he's behind the times as well. I mean, some of it may be a little too behind the times. I'm kind of like, okay, like he would know what that is. And then Daniel's just so the suave guy, you know, he's got kind of the cool way of putting everything, and you know, where it's, again, can come across a little corny, but there's a real charm to it. Even when you're kind of laughing at it, it's like, no, this is still very enjoyable. It's still very likable. But the child actors in this, I think all of them, like, you see them go through these transformations. Again, with the exception of that last episode in season 2, they feel very warranted. They feel like they're really, really progressing through this change. There's one kid, again, without giving anything away, they call him Lip a lot in this. And if you compare his performance from how he starts off at the beginning of this show to later in the series, I mean, it's like two totally different people, but in the best way. They're supposed to be this huge transformation that happens. But what's so great about it is that the transformation themselves on both sides, you see the value of both sides, but you also see the dangers of both of them as well. And for the most part, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, you can probably predict there's going to be a few scenes where Johnny and Daniel they're obviously not going to like each other and they're going to be confrontational, but there's going to be some times where they find they have things in common, or they have a heartfelt talk or something like that. And when those happen, those are actually my favorite scenes, because they just feel so real. They really feel like, you know what, when they put behind the childish stuff and everything, and the battle and everything, like, they really do have a lot of similarities. You know, and like, one could have been the other if things, you know, maybe they had different mentors and such. And one is constantly trying to get better, and one is kind of lowering himself to that level. And again, they're just sort of getting to that even level, and it just feels so natural. And you see the children as sort of like the output of that. Like, whatever they're going through is definitely reflected on them. And the nice thing as well is that you don't know which kid is gonna go to which dojo. It's not that, well, these are obviously the bad kids, or these are obviously the good kids. No, you see them kind of switch around a bit and play with it a bit. And I really like that. It wasn't 100% predictable, and anytime they had something, like I said, that was going to be one of these cliches that you've seen a million times in lesser shows, they either do something different with it, or they get past it really quick. And they're like, okay, yeah, sorry we had to do that, but it's to get to this part. That's really, really cool. And it works super, super well. It's in the middle of season 2, I was actually so taken in by it that, so something that, you know, me and my brother and a lot of critics like to do, we like to watch something and we enjoy analyzing it. We enjoy saying, well, did that work? Did that not work? But not to a point of it's like, oh, how can I be above this, or how can I knock this down? It's like, no, it's really fun to do, because then we can appreciate what's great about it too. And man, I thought they're gonna go this direction, but they did this, and that's fantastic, and you like it even more. And it was happening so much with this that I just sort of stopped doing that, and I just sort of relaxed, and I felt like I'm in good hands. Like, I'm just gonna let the show do whatever it does, because I'm so confident it's going to take me to a really cool place, this really great journey. And like I said, throughout the majority of it does, just that last episode, and it does make me concerned for season 3, which is coming out in January, apparently. But I hope they don't go that route. I hope they actually really do keep it relatively adult. And, you know, I mean, by the end of the season 2, you're sensing a formula now, and that's exactly what I don't want. Which is not to say it's easy to, you know, get out of that formula, because, I mean, I couldn't write for this show. I couldn't figure out how to constantly have these two warring against each other and finding different ways to make it look like, you know, like a fight's gonna happen, then it's not, or it's not gonna happen and then it does, or which kid's gonna go to each side, or how are they, you know, gonna piss off the other this week or whatever, are they gonna get along? I mean, this is tricky writing, and they really, really handle it well. So I'm hoping they continue that with season 3. I hope they really look back and say, okay, what worked about these other 2 seasons, and how can we focus more on that while also making it feel, you know, fresh and new. Even though it's based on something from the 80s. But that's what's so funny, is that where Karate Kid had a very formulaic story, I guess this has kind of a formulaic setup, but it's... no, I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking of that last episode I saw, which felt very formulaic, but I thought the setup was actually pretty fascinating, even down to focusing more on the initial villain of the film. So I really like the direction they were taking with it. And like I said, for all of season 1, you know, actually, for the pilot is a little shaky, and then it ends really shaky, like really, really bad in season 2. So maybe that's part of the balance. Maybe that's how it's supposed to work out. I'm not sure. But if you watch the pilot and you're like, it's a little awkward at times, trust me, it finds its footing very quickly. And honestly, compared to other pilots, it's a really good pilot. Most pilots are pretty awkward, but this one, like I said, it finds its footing really fast. Hell, most shows take like a season or 2 to figure out to find their footing. I thought this one got it really, really quick. And then season 2, like, really good. I mean, really, really solid. Just has a bad ending, which sadly looks like a lot of effort was put into it as well. Like I said, there's a fight in there, and it just looks like they put all their effort in this fight. I mean, it clearly shows, but just what led up to it and what follows afterwards is just, it really is CW. It really is Dawson's Creek, man. So, yeah, I still highly recommend it, because I surprisingly do know people who haven't seen it yet. I mean, I guess I was one of them, but everything they're saying is true. That it really is just so well written and so well crafted, and kind of keeps you guessing, especially who's the real villain. So I can't recommend it more. Just be ready for not the best ending in season 2, and fingers crossed season 3 will be more like season 1 than the majority of season 2. So, what do you guys think? Do you really enjoy it? Do you get on the bandwagon with everyone else, or are you did you never get into it? Did you think it just didn't work? And especially, again, without giving away spoilers, what did you think of that last episode in season 2? Because I just hated it, with the exception of the fight. I'd love to know what you think about it, because I haven't seen what people's reactions are to it. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if if you're excited for season 3 now, or did that throw you off, or do you think just the first 2 seasons are absolutely perfect? Let me know your thoughts. I'm really, really curious. So that's about it. I'll see you next time. Take care.